Hey everybody, I'm Sean Robinson.
I'm Carson Grubaugh.
I'm Brandon Graham.
Welcome to Living the Line Show and Tell. Carson, got
Yes.
something for the class?
Yeah. We were talking about manga that we would like to see translated as like something that we were going to go talk about. So I had a few pulled up, but the one that haunts me the most, and it's going to be weird, but there's this book I've read like one issue of this, and I don't even know if it's Division Chair Kosaku Shima. It's the same guy earlier in his career. And so there's this whole I I think this is a series that's been going for 40 years now that tracks this guy's from his getting hired, well, from his childhood all the way through getting hired and then working his way up through a corporation to eventually becoming the president of the corporation, I think. And it's apparently pretty popular, has had like a game made about it and everything. But that scope of like a project that tracks someone's entire life, and then that it would be something around a character who is just working up his way in a corporation, which I think most people would be like, well, that's not that interesting. From the one issue I read, it was so well done that I'm pretty convinced that the rest of this it would be good. And then I think,
Well, I have very good news for you, Carson. It
yes,
looks like it has been translated.
well, it was translated in this weird like once you can't find them, you can't buy them anymore, and it's only a part of it, but it's like these weird yeah, like double bilingual translations.
Huh.
Um Yeah, but there's no way I've never been able to find a copy of this. And they've only translated like, Division Chief
Ah,
Kosaku Shima rather, they don't have the whole series.
Does
And
he
as
age
we
as he goes
as
on?
we're say that again?
Oh, does the character age?
Yeah, yeah, it tracks him through his whole life from childhood to death and, his climb up the corporate ladder from what I've read about.
so what volume is his fight with the mailman that finally sends him into his obsessive spiral with the neighbor girl and his terrorizing everyone with the truck that he steals?
That's like the um Division Janitor Kosaku Shima Volume 3, page 52, I think.
Okay, good.
But just an example of like some of the good cartooning that's in
Wow.
there. Um, it's looks like some pretty simple art, but it's just I don't know why it's so fascinating to me that they would track a whole lifetime of somebody.
Oh, sure.
Really cool. Because there's only a couple comics like I'm aware that Gasoline Alley did that. I
Yeah.
guess I
Oh, it
never did
certainly
this.
did to the point where it was quite morbid after a while when Walt was 123 or whatever.
Wouldn't the characters die and age out? Like I think
Yeah,
that.
they had to eventually give Walt the heave ho. Uh,
Was it a thing where they passed it on to his child or another artist?
yeah, so Frank King retired. I mean, he gradually faded out, in the late 50s, but they passed it on to other people, and so
It's
that
still
one was
going, isn't it?
yeah, it's still. I mean, this probably runs in 10 newspapers or something like that. But yeah.
You know,
But
there
and
were 10
still
newspapers.
chronological.
But they killed Walt finally because he was like 123 years old in real time. I'm sorry that I've interrupted your businessman.
No, no, no. That was just that was just clicking through the art while we're talking. It's not like when we're looking at Otomo or someone where we're gonna be like, oh my God, look at all. I mean, it's functional art. It's good. It tells a story. Um, but
I
yeah,
like
to
how
me, it's
color
just the
works.
idea of longevity that is really interesting. Talking about another comic strip, For Better or for Worse, that ages the kids, and
Mhm.
I've always liked stories like that, and I wish there were more. And so when I see one that's been going for 40 years, that's really exciting.
Yeah, until Lynn Varley hit the reset switch on that one, which was really wild. I can't
Yeah.
imagine doing that.
Oh
That
yeah, you want to explain that? Because I know vaguely about that. Like she was doing the whole comic and aging them out, and then just went back and started over. Is that what you're
She
saying?
went back and started over.
Yeah,
But
she just started redrawing the old strips and like updating the jokes and stuff. It's not like she changed the story from my knowledge of it really. Or
well,
she
maybe
didn't.
not yet, but I'm certain that's next. As the neighbor kid is going to have three heads, and
Is she
they're going
still
to start.
going? I thought she had quit.
Oh,
I
did
thought
it stop? Okay,
I
maybe
thought she
maybe they
quit,
did.
quit. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's one of the greatest comics of all time, in my opinion, and very under talked about because of I mean, try and think about aging a character in front of an audience every day, having them successfully age, but you can never see it like, oh, now April's older. That's an amazing drawing trick.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see it kind of studied with Broken because I wonder if anyone's done any comics where there was like a break between books and then like 5 years later a new Tintin book comes out and he's got a beard all of a sudden or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's the new book with the new Urasawa series has a
Hmm.
pretty major time jump between volume one and volume two.
Oh, I guess he did that in 20th Century Boys as well.
Right, and let's see, what's the other example I could think off the top of my head? A Cross Game by Adachi has a 6 year time jump between the
Um,
volumes.
Pretty much every Shuzo Oshimi book, like the structure of a Shuzo Oshimi story is like the first two-thirds or so is like the most awful, abusive, horrific things happening to someone in their childhood. And then there's always like a 5 to 10 year jump, and then you meet them as adults, like all of a sudden the story swerves and it becomes very hopeful about them getting over what they went through as a kid. Or I feel like that's something they do in Japan more because they do take those bigger scale scope of a life usually in the stories.
Yeah,
Wait,
there's
is that the
something
Welcome Back Alice guy?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he's fucking fantastic. Best guy right now.
there's something kind of fatalistic about it. Specifically like both Gasoline Alley and for better or for worse, you have characters that are named after real people,
Yeah.
and you also have like the sense that they kind of are avatars for the, you know, avatars for the author or represent pretend avatars for the audience of the author. You know,
Well, and people that they knew in their real life, like a lot of like she's pretty open about her husband's a dentist, and a lot of the jokes
right?
came for yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Isn't the main character named Lynn? I mean, the mother is.
I don't know if that no, I don't think she's named Lynn,
She's
but
got the same hair sweep and everything. Anyway, you're
yeah.
right. Maybe you're right. Maybe she's not named after him, but um,
Did Charles Schultz know a Charlie Brown? I have some memory of that.
well, I don't know about that, but it's Charlie and Charles. I mean, and his dad was a barber, um,
Mm.
and he had a crew cut. You know, if you accept the idea that Charlie Brown is supposed to actually have a crew cut and not be a bald kid, despite
What?
all. This is what he said in interviews when people asked him why is just Charlie Brown have alopecia or whatever. He said
Wait,
no, his dad is a barber and uses a crew cut thing on him, and so he just has a little stubble.
It'd be fascinating to take
uh,
comics that don't move like that, like do like what was the Charlie Brown cast like in what were Peanuts doing
Yeah,
when they're in college?
right,
so this is the front of his crew cut hair.
right.
I'm never gonna see these the same again. God damn it,
Sorry,
son.
man.
I
When
get it's
Charlie
like a
Brown has a
little
red shirt, it's the most exciting thing in the world to me. It's like, oh my god, they can do that.
Yeah, no, he's a blonde kid with short hair, and he's got really short blonde hair.
okay.
Which, if you throw in the fact that his dad is a barber, you really get an idea that his dad just has no interest in him at all. Right? Because he's not even going to cut his hair. He's just going to buzz him with a zero guard.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
Not bad
I'm
enough that he lives over in Trombone Land, uh, and in a state of perpetual frozen animation where he can never escape the childish hellscape that he's presented with. You know. Yeah, it'd be interesting to think about what the ramifications are of that kind of application. Obviously, the case of the businessman manga, you know from the start that this is what you're going to be wanting to do. We're going to see the progression, and presumably the audience is going to imagine themselves going through that progression. So you're going to have an idea that he's actually going to succeed, and it's not going to turn into a horror story or whatever.
Well, my understanding is that it started with him as like the entry level guy, and then the series was successful, so they've jumped around. Like maybe the story about his youth was actually volume 5, and so it wasn't a total linear progression from what I've read. I think it started with like yeah the entry level guy, and then it went from there. So I don't know what the audience expectation would be. And it's one of those things that like we'll never get a full translation because like you were talking about in the last video, who's going to sign up for a 40 years worth of manga where
Right.
you're like, yeah, we're going to put this entire thing out.
Right.
But it's a real bummer because that is, I mean, whether, like I said, the couple that I read were good. They were really good. So it gives me confidence that the whole series is good. But even if a lot of it's shit, it's just such a significant body of work that is totally closed off. That's a thing that keeps coming up over and over on the channel is how many things we're just closed off to, and it's wild that there's that
Yeah, you
much
get
out.
totally different metrics on comics depending on who your audience is, it seems. Like in Japan, it's like if everybody, you have salarymen and housewives that are all reading comics. And it's interesting because there is that shift in like, even in our lives, the shift of who reads comics has changed a lot. Like you have like teenage girls going to Barnes and Noble and getting manga now that just was, non-existent when we were teenagers. And so I imagine that will change what is possible to do with the medium based on the market.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness. And it's, I mean, to
Movies,
me, it's already having great
newspaper.
effect. Like if I think back on my favorite books over the last few years, a lot of them are, or the things that I feel like are new and fresh, a lot of them are female creators, um, who are bringing like something new to the table, that were obviously grew up under the manga kind of umbrella. That's was what they were reading.
Well, one last thing point I like to and wrap up with is that if you are interested in a particular series, I would highly recommend that you go ahead and buy a volume in a different language and try it out. And you'll find that it's a different kind of reading experience because you're almost entirely reliant on the visuals. But I'd highly recommend that you try Google Translate on some summaries of the book if you can, and get an idea of like what the basic structure is before you try to read it, and try to just envision each of these panels in sequence. And I found it to be a lot easier than I thought. Then again, I'm reading a lot of the stuff right now that's very visual and varies very much from cartoonist to cartoonist how successfully that is as a strategy. I think it's safe to say I said I was going to be shy about what it is that I'm reading. We're putting out the first book by Shinichi Koga in English. He's an incredible horror author that worked from 1956 to his death in 2016, I believe, 2018. And incredibly prolific guy. I read lots and lots of books by him. They're very easy to read and digest without reading the text because it's so visual. Everything is telegraphed through the physicality of the characters. And frankly, sometimes when you see it actually what the text means, it's slightly underwhelming sometimes because sometimes it's being mirrored so effectively by the visuals that you really don't need the little bit of text that's there.
I got you.
Exactly right.
This makes me think of the Ghost in the Shell sex scene that I saw 15 years or something afterwards, and it is the least. Like I was telling Casey's been my girlfriend's been going through Appleseed for the first time now, and she got to the mature readers shower scene issue of Appleseed,
Hmm.
and where Dunan is just talking about her mother's murder. And I was equating it to I was telling her that like something about this guy, he will draw the sexiest thing he can and pair it with nightmare dialogue.
Gotta soften the blow, man.
Yes, so.
All the puns intended. But Sean, I gotta ask you, while you're doing that, that sounds like it could be a really good exercise for writing too. Are you like placing dialogue, writing dialogue as you're going, like mentally, kind of?
It sort of, yeah. I haven't let it get quite that crazy, but yeah, I mean that's essentially like I'm reading a summary of the book before I sit down and read it, and then as I'm going, I'm filling in the blanks. And like I said, like a really visual cartoonist, I think that's a really doable thing to do. Um,
That would make a
yeah.
great challenge. Like, here's a manga, untranslated, Stan Lee it.
Yeah, just don't Claremont it.
Yeah,
Whatever
don't
you do.
Claremont it, Stan Lee it. You like treat it Marvel style and
Right.
just assume that you got to that's the space you've got and you got to fill the word bubble.
Hmm.
That would be a fun challenge. We got to try
Yeah.
that
We do
sometime.
that where we each take a 20-page chapter and add dialogue. There was a thing that me and Simon Roy would do. We had misprints of Prophet Volume 2, and at conventions sometimes we would the K channel, the blacks weren't printed on it. So we would take that when the convention was slow and write in all the dialogue and like joke dialogue in pen. And then we would tell them. It wasn't just like, here's the comic, this one's shitty.
Surprise!
We'll have to do that with like Brandon, like one of those like weird baseball mangas or something that you've got. Like we could just take a chapter just for shits and giggles. Yeah.
Because it feels like something people have probably done with like 50s romance comics where they rework
Sure.
the dialogue, but it'd be interesting where you just have no idea and several people take stabs at it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope that you're enjoying this. And if you are, we'll do some more of them. And if you don't tell us.
We're still going to do some more.
We're probably going to do some more of them because they're easy. And like right now, we're all busy. So this is easy. But we'll see you on the next
And fun.
one.
And hope and hopefully the tangents are going well. So join us episode 4 next week when I cry on camera.
Oh, okay. I'm excited for that.
No,